And we are back one more time for one more episode of The Horror Guys.
The Horror Guys. Yay!
Woo.
Number 271, where we're going to talk about horror movies.
That's a lot of movies.
That's a lot of movies.
Crazy number of movies.
Yeah.
But this week we're going to talk about 4 movies and a short.
Okay.
Something completely different.
No, not too different. Well, we've got a brand new one, Dr. Jekyll from 2024. Hammer Films is still in the game.
Yeah.
They've put out a new one. And then we'll watch a documentary about Skinwalkers with the Skinwalkers, American Werewolves. And that's
American Werewolves 2.
Uh-huh. And we've then got a short film, Drama Queen, followed by Deliver Us, which was 2023, but that was one of those that was kind of released this year. And yeah, but it's very new. And then last one, we'll look for one of the contenders for the worst horror film of all time, Dracula versus Frankenstein from 1971. Is it really as bad as everybody says?
With a name like that, how bad could it be?
Dracula versus Frankenstein, how cool is that?
Movie poster looks cool.
Yeah.
And of course, in addition, if you're on our weekly newsletter that you can sign up for at horrorbulletin.com, you would also read about 1939's The Gorilla. A fabulous movie from Bela Lugosi.
Madcap comedy.
Yeah, it's something.
It's a little stale.
Yeah.
They tried hard.
That was so bad.
Everybody was working so hard at that movie.
And also Hercules and the Haunted World from 1961, which
it's pushing it to call it horror.
I don't know. It's got a lot of monsters and scary stuff. It's mythology, but I mean it's mythology monsters.
Mm-hmm.
And better yet, it's got Christopher Lee as the villain.
It does.
Oh, is that a spoiler saying he's the villain?
Yeah, kind of. But you don't get to hear his voice.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. It was done in
Italian.
It's
an Italian movie.
And he knows Italian, so he read his lines in Italian like a good little Italian actor.
Yeah.
But then they made the American version and they had somebody else dub his voice.
And he sounds a little bit like Christopher Lee.
It's not too far off.
Quite a bit like Christopher Lee, but here and there you can recognize, that's not Christopher Lee.
It's really not.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is him. It doesn't sound like him.
Yeah, he's flapping his lips. Yeah.
All right, already mentioned the weekly newsletter. You can sign up for that at horrorbulletin.com and get that every week for free in your email box. Usually there are 6 full-length movies and a short, sometimes 7 movies, sometimes more.
Mm-hmm.
It's all bonus stuff. And, of course, it's just 1 email a week with no spam or anything. You just get the reviews in your email box every Saturday morning. And you know what's better than getting your reviews in your email box every Saturday morning?
Getting free books
on Friday.
On Friday.
Free Book Friday, yes. It's something brand new we started last week, and we're going to be continuing this indefinitely. If you go over to hourlongpress.com, HOUR, because it's 1 hour long, hourlongpress.com, and you can see some of our currently available books there. And there's a little newsletter sign up in the upper right-hand corner where if you sign up, you'll get 1 email every Friday morning, and each one of them is going to have a free book. This is not Kindle Unlimited free. This is $0 to anybody who wants to do the ebook free from Amazon.
And these are all going to be short nonfiction books. And,
right.
And like Ryan said, you read them at about an hour or so.
Yeah, it takes about an hour.
They're to the point. They're informational and interesting and
enough to bring you up to speed on a topic without bogging you down in a ton of boring detail.
Just the good stuff.
We could have just called it Short Attention Span Press.
There you go.
But anyway, it's going to be ongoing, permanent series coming out now. If you're on that email list, you'll get something new every Friday. Or every Friday we publish a book at least, which is the plan.
Mm-hmm.
But the first, 6 or 8 of these are all going to be biographies of legendary horror icons.
Start with what you know.
Last week was Vincent Price. If you want to read the biography of Vincent Price, it's out there. Go to hourlongpress.com and follow the links to Amazon. But it's not free anymore. This week, if you go there and sign up for the list, you will get
Peter Cushing.
The biography of Peter Cushing. And if these sound like books we've already published, they're not.
No.
The horror
they're different
guys
ones.
have The Horror Guy's Guide to the Films of Vincent Price and The Horror Guy's Guide to the Films of Peter Cushing.
These are about the people.
But those are filmographies. They go through all the horror movies in great detail. These are more about the individual people.
And they had interesting lives.
They did.
All of them did. Yeah.
You've read all of them so
Ups
far.
and
There's
downs,
6
yeah.
or 7 of them.
Uh-huh. Well, Vincent Price mostly had ups. He started out good, and he just kind of stayed at a nice plateau. He didn't have a lot of downs.
And Peter Cushing, he started at the top, made it to the peak, kind of hit the bottom again, and made it come back a little bit.
Yeah.
He's kind of up and down, but you'll have to read the details on that.
You will. Yeah.
Again, that new website is hourlongpress.com. I'm going to have to make some kind of link on the horror guys to that pretty soon.
Yeah, you should. Yeah.
Okay, but anyway, we are here to talk about movies.
Specifically, Dr. Jekyll.
Where's
Right.
Mr. Hyde?
Well, he's not in the title.
That's almost a spoiler in itself.
It is. Yeah, it's going to be hard to talk about this without super spoiling it. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's so
this
new.
either just came, no, actually, I don't believe it has come out yet. It comes out next week sometime.
The official
so we're
release.
not gonna have to be able to say, we can't say too much about this one.
Yeah.
It's directed by Joe Stevenson, written by Dan Kelly Mullern and Robert Louis Stevenson. Well, I don't think he had a lot to do with the movie, but he
But
wrote
the original story. Yeah.
Stars Eddie Izzard, Scott Chambers, Lindsay Duncan, and Robin Cara. It's an hour and 30 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. If you didn't know this was coming, it is here, or will be within a few days.
Yeah.
Spoiler free. What happens?
Well, this was well made with very good acting and a great setting. That house is awesome. Well, the script left us kind of wanting. There isn't enough monstrosity going on, and we felt like they missed an opportunity keeping it as tame as they did. We didn't hate it, but we don't give it a real strong recommendation.
It's got a good cast. It's got a good set.
I'm glad I
looks great.
saw it because I like Eddie Izzard, and I like the story of Jekyll and Hyde, and I don't regret it, but
Mistakes were made.
I was disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, again, we're not going to spoil this because it's not even out yet. But
Yeah.
if you want to read the whole spoiler review, it is available at horrorguys.com and Horror Bullet, neither one.
And this is one you have to watch for yourselves and see what you think of it. Let us know what you think of it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we start off. Rob is watching Plan 9 from Outer Space as the credits roll. You ever notice in a horror movie when they're watching another horror movie, it's always one of 3 or 4 things that are in public domain?
That's one of them.
Usually it's The Night of the Living Dead, but Plan 9 is always a good contender also.
Yeah, it is.
Well, we see headlines about the trans CEO is abused. And where is Nina Jekyll? Nina Jekyll is this trans CEO who has gone missing, or something has gone wrong there.
Yep, just a quick fill in.
Afterward, he talks to his brother Ewan. How do you even say that?
Ewan.
I have trouble with that name.
I believe it's Ewan.
Ewan about seeing Maeve in town. Ewan says he's got a job interview lined up for Rob tomorrow. He'll be caring for someone. Well, Rob goes to the interview way out in the country at a huge estate. If you've ever seen a Hammer movie, it's one of those houses.
Yep, big old isolated estate.
Well, the woman who runs the house has Rob stand as she scans him with a metal detector, and he also has to sign a non-disclosure agreement about what he's going to see for the interview. Well, he goes in to see the boss, the owner of the house, Dr. Nina Jekyll. Nina insists that she doesn't need help. She needs a helper. Well, Rob says he was a caregiver during his time in prison. He just got out last week. It's really not the best job interview you've ever seen.
Yeah, and it's funny because Sandra is just appalled and all apologetic.
How did this guy even get on the pile?
Yeah, but Nina's kind of sweet on him, so yeah.
Well, he impresses the doctor and he gets the job. It's a live-in position, and Rob needs a job so he can fulfill his parole and get to see his daughter again. Sandra, the woman in charge, insists that Rob leaves his phone in his room. She gives him a pager for Nina to reach him with. She explains that there are cameras in almost every room, and she'll be watching and waiting for him to screw up. Right away, Nina likes Rob's choice in breakfast food. I haven't had cereal in decades. After breakfast, Nina has Rob reset all the alarms in the house and the security password. Well, that's odd.
Mm-hmm.
And she gives him her watch because he doesn't have one. While he's checking the sensors, he finds a mysterious locked door. At lunchtime, Nina wants Rob to deactivate all the alarms. She's forgotten her instructions from the morning.
Mm-hmm.
The next day, there's hell to pay from Sandra when she finds out what he's done to the alarms. She thinks he stole a watch, and Nina wasn't given her medications. He's immediately fired, but he's done nothing wrong. He was doing what Nina wanted, and she said she'd do her own medications. Nina apologizes for Sandra's overreaction. Nina wants to hire him permanently to make up for the snafu. Sandra is not pleased, but it's not up to her.
She's not the boss.
Nope. And a lot more weirdness happens. We're really just getting started there.
Yeah, but we probably should stop there.
Rob goes to work for Dr. Jekyll, and there's some weirdness
of course,
with her, of
you
course.
know, knowing the story, there's
You know what's going to happen.
Jekyll and Hyde, but how does that
Or
work out?
do you?
Yeah, well, this is different. It's a different take on it. They experimented. They tried something different.
Okay, well, our expectations were subverted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. In my
Here's
review
the
here,
commentary
I can't
that's got
say I'm going
spoilers
to
in
cut
it.
this to death.
Yeah.
There was a missed opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
The acting was all good from everybody.
Eddie was great.
Yeah, but
And the kid was great. Yeah, everybody was really good.
Yeah, without spoiling it, I can't say more.
Yeah,
There were
can't.
missed opportunities here.
Yeah.
It's a fun story, but yeah, it's all kind of blah until the end.
Well, not blah, but
Well, right, it's
blah.
tame.
Blah is a bad word. Tame.
The sets,
Yeah.
music, and cinematography are excellent. The acting is fine, and the characters are just odd enough to be interesting. The storyline is a little convoluted. We have many questions. Overall, we liked it, but it's one of those you don't want to think too heavily about.
Mm-hmm.
And our review has lots more to say that I'm not going to get into because spoilers.
So it's a kind of a paradoxical recommendation. Like, okay,
It's a very well done movie with a very poor script.
and you should see it to see what you think of it.
Well,
Because it's interesting. It's a different take.
and it's Hammer, and they haven't done anything since 2019, so give them some money so they can make more.
And in the traditional, film, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is always a guy, and here is a woman.
Oh, not always.
Well, there was Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde.
And that's been done a couple of times.
Yeah, but normally Dr. Jekyll is a man,
Yes.
Yeah, and here Dr. Jekyll is a woman.
And Eddie Izzard is a very famous man who has become a woman, a trans woman, and
Fully-
that's going to go
fully female.
somewhere.
Yeah, so you should check it out.
But
That's what I'm going to say.
again, you might be surprised.
Yeah.
All right, one that doesn't have a whole lot of surprises is 2024's The Skinwalkers, American Werewolves 2. Written and directed by Seth Breedlove, stars various interview-type people. It's an hour and 20 minutes, and there's a trailer in the show notes. And we have We've reviewed several movies from Seth Breedlove and his Small Town Monsters group. They do all these like Cryptids in America interview shows. Some are very good. That last one we did back around Halloween was kind of bland. It was really kind of awful, I thought. This one is right back as good as the others. It is a very entertaining investigative documentary exploring the possible existence of skinwalkers and the like.
Well, what I liked about this one was it stayed a lot more on topic, and the people that he was interviewing or were being interviewed, had a story to tell.
Yep.
And clearly a story. That previous one that you mentioned, that
It felt
wasn't
like
quite as
leftover
good.
footage and filler in that previous
And there was
one.
one couple that was just really going off topic and meandering on all kinds of weirdness.
Yeah.
This one had stories. These people had seen something. Here's what we saw. It was creepy. We're still freaked out. I liked that.
Yeah, this was far better than the previous one.
Yeah, I thought so.
What happens? Again, it's a documentary, so there's no spoilers.
Yeah, there's not really spoilers. So yeah. The spoiler synopsis, the whole thing. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not
just-
really
yeah,
like
just
reading a
do the
movie.
thing.
Yeah. Good visuals. We're immediately told that a skinwalker is a person who can change shape into any animal they desire. They gain their ability to change into animals by killing the one they love the most.
And that's the last we heard of that.
Or that's some of the story, yeah. Well, after the credits, we hear about the Navajo and other Native American tribes in the area near Farmington. There were supposedly a couple of UFO crashes in the area, so it's a mysterious place. We are told there are things here that they are told not to talk about.
Yeah, everybody knows these things are here,
But
these
they're kinda
skinwalkers,
hush-hush
but we're not
about
allowed
it.
to talk about them.
Yeah, because if you just mention them, you might be cursed, or they might follow you, or there's some fear there. Yeah, and is the area cursed, or is it an ancient Indian burial ground? What's going on here?
If Stephen King were involved, I could tell you for sure.
Yeah. Well, the first interview is a woman who tells about an encounter she had when she was a teenager. An old woman with a lantern came up to ask for a ride, and when they dropped the woman off in the middle of the desert, all they saw was a huge wolf-like dog. Well, the dog and the old woman changed places a few times, which terrified the girls in the car, and later they found claw marks on the side of their vehicle.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, the next woman says she was raised on the Navajo reservation. One time, she and her friend were being followed by a big dog-like monster. It was too big to be a normal dog, and she knew better than to interfere with something that lives in the between world. And the other interviews are kind of similar. They had a sighting, they had an encounter.
There's lots more.
Yeah. And, the people do seem sincere. People in the desert part of the reservation running into dog creatures of various forms. No evidence offered, but, leaving us to believe it or not.
All right. Well, we've reviewed several of these films in this series before, and this is one of the better ones.
Mm-hmm.
The visuals are good, the music and sound cues really work, and the guests seem to know what they're talking about. What I like is that when they're just telling a story, they're just standing there instead of just looking at their boring faces. They show like visuals of werewolves running through the forest and just creepy stuff to set the mood.
It cuts it up good.
Yeah. The music especially adds to the mood and keeps the stories from feeling just too talky.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, it's very entertaining. If you're into cryptids and personal stories, you'll like this one.
Yeah.
Did you ever listen to Coast AM radio?
No.
All night long with the...
I did not.
what's his name? The host.
I don't know.
I used to listen to him all the time. He's dead now.
Okay, I don't know.
Probably still doing it from wherever he's at. People would call in and tell these really scary ghost type stories to him. And this really happened to me.
Well, that sounds cool.
And it was, you listen to that at 3 a.m. in a dark room. It's fun.
Yeah, I bet that'd be creepy.
This stuff kind of reminds me of that. These people telling us these stories about things that they really encountered and they believe.
Okay, that sounds fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, what's up next?
We got a short film for you, Drama Queen, which was directed and written by David E. Texiera, stars Katrina Carvalho and David E. Texiera. Runtime's 6 minutes, 33 seconds, and you can watch it for absolutely free on YouTube. We've got a link in the show notes.
Art Bell. Art Bell was the host.
Okay. All right. I never heard that. Yeah.
You never listened to that at all?
No.
Oh, gosh. I think it's still on with a different host.
Okay.
You just got to stay up till 2 a.m. to hear it. All right, but anyway, Drama Queen.
Once upon a time, there was a woman who was eager to find love. And we watch as a jealous woman bakes a pie. There's lots of pie in this. She adds some love potion, but it doesn't seem to work. Oh, wait, the man is gay. So how's she going to deal with this? Yeah. Not well at all.
It's all very hilariously narrated. Revenge pie sounds kind of tasty to me. It is, in fact, all very dramatic, as the Drama Queen shows us, and overblown. That's kind of the point. It's very, very weird.
It was weird and good. Yeah. I liked it. Yeah. Weird pie.
Well, 2023, Deliver Us. Directed by Crew Ennis and Leroy Krantz, written by the same two. Stars Leroy Krantz, Maria Virarati, and Alexander Siddig. Hour and 43 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. Oh, just look at that. It's got a big cross on the front. I'll bet it's a possession movie.
And it's a Deliver Us from Evil. Yeah.
Spoiler free.
Well, this was hit and miss for us. The story was a little bit on the predictable side. I mean, like Brian says, it's a exorcism story. You can see that coming a mile away. The cast did a great job with it, though. And the direction and visuals are very interesting, and the effects are really well done. So it's got pluses and minuses. It's a very loud movie. Kind of uses noise for jump scares and emphasis. We liked it more than disliked it, but maybe just barely.
My number one
A
complaint,
6, 7 out of 10.
normally there's a jump scare. It's very, very quiet. They're in a dark room. They turn around and there's nothing there. And then they look around and they turn around and bam, there it is, right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
This one here would do exactly the same thing. They go into a dark room. They'd look around and there's nothing there. Then they'd turn around and they bam! And there's nothing there. But you got the loud noise.
But there was a loud music.
Why?
Yeah, loud
Nothing
noise.
happened.
Yeah.
It was a loud noise.
Scary.
No, it was annoying.
Yeah. Well, we can't spoil this again too much because it's so new.
It's not that new.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, don't spoil it. It's too new.
We open on a bunch of prisoners on their knees being executed one at a time. As the bodies hit the floor without heads, someone starts peeling their skin off, tattoos and all.
They've got intricate writing and codes and maps and things on their skin. There's
A
something
small
up with
cult.
that. Uh-huh.
Well, we cut to a convent where one sister snipes at another about her vanity. She has a mirror in her room.
Shocking.
Well, she has nightmares about the skin being peeled from the prisoners' backs, and the leader of the executioners smiles at his tattoo collection. She wakes up and staggers out of her room, bleeding heavily. Is she possessed?
Maybe.
In St. Petersburg, Russia, a priest comes into the boss's office. They want to assign him to do an exorcism on Sister Yulia. The case had been confirmed, but Father Fox just wants to retire from the church and be a father to his coming baby. Priests
Yeah.
have babies?
This one did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cardinal Russo, possibly going to be the next pope, will be going along with him. That's how serious the Vatican is taking this case.
And he's got some experience with exorcism work.
Yeah. Father Fox goes to the remote, isolated convent on the mountain, and the head nun padlocks the gate shut after letting him inside. We saw how well that worked last week, didn't we?
Uh-huh.
With the,
what could go wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He meets Cardinal Russo, who has read his writings and is impressed. Father Saul introduces himself. He's a creepy man. Nobody knows why Sister Yulia insists on talking only to Fox. Sister Yulia says she never learned English. She only speaks it for him. So she doesn't know English.
And
but
yet she speaks
it.
English. Yeah. Uh-huh.
She's very pregnant and says it was an immaculate conception. It soon becomes clear that the Mother Superior doesn't want Yulia talking to him. Russo has an old book written by some Zoroastrians, but he can't read it. But Fox can. It's about a virgin birth, twins, and the devil's son. Yes, we're going there.
Mm-hmm.
Yulia is carrying twin boys, and Russo thinks that the prophecy applies to this situation. But Fox is skeptical.
Yeah, one of the twins is going to be the Savior, and one's going to be the Antichrist. Born both at the same time.
Fox follows some footprints and finds Yulia naked and wading into the frozen lake. He sees 2 dead babies float to the surface. Nope, just a dream. And there's a loud jump scare too, of course.
Of course.
He wakes up and finds an old woman in his room. Oh, loud jump scare too here. Yeah, wow. Okay, boom. Father Saul wants to abort the babies, but Russo says that's wrong. The babies will bring about the end of days if they're allowed to be born, so it's not an easy question. The Antichrist and the Messiah are predicted to be born together. Fox he does.
He overhears
He
this.
overhears this,
Yes.
and he's got opinions. Fox walks in on some kind of black mass, and Saul attacks him with a knife. Fox and Russo grab Yulia and run for their car. Russo rams the gate, but it's too solid. Still, they manage to escape on a train to Kiev. And we'll stop there.
Yeah.
The chase is on.
The chase is on with the very pregnant nun and the 2 priests.
And the 2 babies.
And the 2 babies. Yeah. What will happen?
Yeah.
Will the prophecy be fulfilled or not?
Well, there are cheap jump scares here just to make us jump, but the people on the screen don't see anything happening. We jump, they don't. It's a very loud movie, unnecessarily so, especially the odd jump scares that are nothing but loud noises. The sets, locations, and music are good. It looks great. The story, on the other hand, it's possession. It's the Antichrist. We've seen it before.
This does have a few different things, enough to make it interesting. Yeah.
It should have ended when they killed a specific character, but instead, it went on another 20 minutes with more going on.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a little too long.
A little bit.
Boo!
but
Gotcha.
like we said, we liked it more than disliked it.
All right. And then, if you ask people the worst horror movie ever made, a lot of critics will talk about this next one.
1971's Dracula versus Frankenstein, which was directed and written by Al Adamson and also written by Samuel M. Sherman. And the stars are J. Carroll Naish, Lon Chaney Jr., hey, big name in it, and Zandor Vorkov, Anthony Isley. Wow, recognizable names. Must be really good. Runtime's an hour and 31 minutes. And you can watch it actually for free on YouTube.
Yeah, Al Adamson is a notorious, one of those exploitation type directors. And I guess he talked to the agents for J. Carroll Naish and Lon Chaney Jr. These guys were huge in the 40s doing all the Universal films. They were both in House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula and many other things. Several of the Inner Sanctum movies. They worked a lot together, and they did really well together. Mm-hmm. So he's saying, oh, hell yeah, sign them up. I'll take both of them.
Well...
Not realizing how old they both were.
Yeah.
It was not a good choice.
Yeah.
It gets a lot of hate from fans and critics. It's very choppy and doesn't have much noise. Actually, it has no strong acting. It was not a great film, but it was watchable with enough weirdness to keep it interesting. We've certainly seen worse, and this has enough pluses to make it worth watching. It is not, in the horror guy's opinion, the worst film of all time.
No, we have seen worse, because we were actually entertained.
It moves fast. It doesn't get boring. I mean, It's got some god-awful bits to it, but it's not boring.
Yeah.
That's the worst sin of a movie.
That's the worst sin
boring.
of a movie when we're bored. Yeah. Start checking the phones.
What happens?
Well, we open on a cemetery as a man digs up a rotten corpse. The night watchman comes upon Dracula, who's doing the digging. And Dracula finishes him off quickly. Meanwhile, at the carnival, a girl walks into some scary fog at the beach, and someone beheads her with an axe.
Before you go on, we got Dracula. Mm-hmm. He's a tall, thin guy. Kind of looks like Christopher Lee in the face a little bit. Yeah. But he's got like this short afro and this tiny little goatee. Mm-hmm. And he's the most ridiculous looking Dracula ever, I thought in the beginning. He just looks like, oh my God, the 70s called. But as it went on, I got kind of used to him.
Yeah.
In some scenes, he's wearing this horrible-looking blue makeup, which was stupid. But he wasn't bad as a Dracula in himself.
Mm-hmm. Not the worst Dracula I've seen. No.
And Frankenstein, when we get to him, he looked pretty cool, too. I'm sort of really torn on Frankenstein here.
Yeah.
It is like the worst mask of all time, but it's
on the
also
other hand,
kind of really good.
It looks kind of rotten. It looks like
he's got a
bloated,
rotten, mushy
corpse.
face.
Yeah, it looks mushy. It looks like if you touched it, your fingers would sink in.
Yes,
like it's all mushy and gushy. Which long rotted flesh. It wasn't bad.
I think the Frankenstein mask probably cost them 13 cents, but it kind of works.
Yeah, I thought it worked. Yeah.
And it turned out Dracula was one of the producer's stockbrokers. He was not a real actor. And for some reason, they decided to do some sort of
amplified
voice modulation amplifying.
Every
Dracula.
time he spoke, it was amplified and modulated.
Which, if he's standing in his castle, that's kind of cool. But at one scene, he was in the car with somebody doing that.
And that's just how his voice always came out.
Why are you doing that? Okay, so at the carnival, a girl gets beheaded. Then what?
And then a third scene quickly. It like we said, it's very choppy.
Boom, boom, boom.
Things change quickly and abruptly. In Las Vegas, Judith Fontaine sings in her show. There's a dance number. She's singing with a couple guys. And afterwards, when she goes backstage, she gets a telegram that says her sister Joni is still missing. Well, she goes to talk to the detective in charge of the search. Again, an abrupt change. And he tells her just to sit around and wait.
He is not a great cop.
He's not, no. As her sister chose to live with hippies on the beach.
And she's getting what's coming to her, probably.
Yeah. He's not really trying to look, and he's kind of proud of it. He's decided that Joni doesn't want to be found. Well, back at the carnival again, a dwarf sells tickets to the funhouse. And again, this quirkiness of the characters that they throw in. They're just kind of...
He's a weird little guy.
Yeah, and he's creepy, yeah. It's called Dr. Duria's Creature Emporium, and it's full of animated wax figures of monsters.
You've seen all that before, and so's the customers here.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Doria talks about Groton, his assistant, and gives a whole creepy speech. After the show, the doctor and Groton go into the back room where the real lab is.
And Groton is Lon Chaney Jr., looking very old, very fat, and very drunk?
Maybe, Possibly, yeah. Well, he's got Joni, the beheaded girl, there on his table, and he's stitched the head back on. Doria explains this whole thing to Groton, who would obviously know all this. It's for our benefit.
As you know,
Groton. Yeah. Well, Groton puts the girl back into storage, and the doctor injects him with something. And he gets all warty and picks up his axe.
Not quite Dr. Jekyll-y, but I guess it's like super strength or something, or just makes him bloodthirsty, or it's weird. We're not quite sure what it does.
Sends him out for more victims. But then Dracula comes to visit the doctor. He knows about Doria's secret. He's actually a descendant of Frankenstein, last living descendant. Dr. Frankenstein knows who Dracula is as well. They've admired each other's work, apparently. Well, Dracula shoots his magic ring at the wall, setting it on fire. And the doctor agrees to work with Dracula to resuscitate the old monster that he dug up. That was the corpse at the beginning. Well, Groton comes upon Bob and Laura making out on the beach and does his thing with them with the axe.
Chop, chop.
Yep. Judith is in town, the singer, questioning people about Joni at the big peace protest. One of the people she questions informs the bike leader Rico that she's nosing around, so he drugs her, and she has a wild trip. Back at the lab, Frankenstein and Dracula hook up the monster to the equipment.
Its equipment is straight from 1931's Frankenstein.
That was
pulled it out
actually
of a prop room.
A lot of cool stuff, yeah. Lightning strikes, and the monster wakes up. Well, Frankenstein wants to send the monster after Dr. Beaumont, the man who discredited him years ago. Dracula and the monster make quick work of him.
And who is Dr. Beaumont? It's Forrest J. Ackerman, the publisher of Famous Monsters of Filmland. What's a good way to get publicity for your movie? Get the editor of the horror movie magazine in your film.
There you go. Well, Judith wakes up at Mike Howard's pad. He brought her home last night. He's like the oldest hippie.
We looked it up. He was 42 when he made this. He's wearing the beads and living with the hippies.
Yeah. He knew Joni. He lives with Samantha and a guy named Strange. They're all talking about a guy they found hacked to pieces down on the beach. Mike tells Judith that her sister hung around the Creature Emporium all the time. She wanted to become a monster herself. Well, Judith and her new friends go to the sideshow to see Dr. Doria. Judith shows Doria a picture of Joni, and of course, he does know about her, but he lies. Samantha and Strange are accosted by Rico's gang, but the police show up just in time to stop things. It's Sergeant Martin, the detective who was talking to Judith earlier. He warns her to stay off the beaches. There's a maniac running loose.
Wait a minute. I thought the sister just was hiding out and didn't want to be found. Now suddenly there's a maniac on the beach.
Yeah.
Could it be she was in danger all along?
It could be, yeah. And they're talking about the guy they found on the beach because the couple got chopped up.
Bob and whatever,
yeah. And Groton took her for the lab and just left the guy. So that's all they found. Judith and Mike then go to the beach and they fall in love.
Immediately. It takes like 3 minutes.
Yeah. Well, Groton starts to change, even though Frankenstein hasn't given him any recent shots. Well, so Frankenstein gives him some of the blood serum to calm him down. Elsewhere, Frankenstein's monster attacks a couple and grabs a girl. Well, Mike and Judy come to the conclusion that Dr. Doria is behind all the missing girls. They find a trap door under the pier that leads right up to the doctor's lab. Rico's gang tries to rape Samantha.
Suddenly, they're surrounded by bikers.
Yeah, but Groton, to the rescue, kills them all. Sorta. Kills Samantha, too. Gets Samantha. Mike and Judith go back to Doria's Emporium, searching for Samantha, and they find Joni in a coffin. Doria, Frankenstein, explains a whole bunch of stuff about fear releasing something into the blood, and that's what makes his special serum.
Could you explain it in any more detail than that?
No.
No.
But he does
Because.
But he does spout off a bunch of science. And at some point too, I don't know, that's what Dracula's there about, is a blood formula.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at some point that's made clear. Groton attacks Mike, but Grasbo, the dwarf, knocks Groton's puppy out through the trap door. Things get crazy fast as Duria shoots Mike and everyone runs outside. Outside, Strange has called Sergeant Martin, and they're outside the Emporium. Duria somehow manages to fall into the guillotine. Yeah. He's in a wheelchair, and he's wheeling along and like flips himself
up
out
and over and into the guillotine and chopped.
gets beheaded. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like we said, it's choppy. That's one of the chops.
How does a man in a wheelchair fall into a guillotine?
Yeah. Groton chases Judith up on the roof, but the detective shoots Groton, who falls to his death. However, the puppy is fine. The dog does not die in this movie. Dracula, who's been suspiciously absent for quite a while, hypnotizes Judith. He gloats about how no one will be able to stop him once he gets more of Frankenstein's blood serum. Mike blinds Frankenstein's monster with a torch, and the monster starts attacking Dracula.
And we think this is the big battle, but no, it's not.
It's not the big one. Mike and Judith get away as the monsters fight. No. Dracula, he's got this ring that lets
Shoots
out
fireballs
blasts of power. Yeah. Burns Mike to death with a blast from his ring.
Well, that
That
took care of Mike awfully quickly.
Yeah. Well, Judith gets away. Yeah. Well, later, Frankenstein and Dracula go back to Drac's castle with Judith in tow. Oh, yeah, she didn't get away. They got her. Yeah. Turns out both monsters have a crush on Judith, and they end up fighting over her. It's Dracula versus Frankenstein. Well, Dracula loses his ring as the two grapple outside. Eventually, Dracula rips the monster's arms and head off. Uh-oh, he lost track of time. The sun is coming up, and he almost makes it before turning to dust. So Judith unties herself, picks up Dracula's ring, and goes outside. Everyone else is dead.
Huh.
Yeah.
Judith and the puppy survive.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Well, again, much of Dr. Frankenstein's equipment were actual props from the 1931 original film. Dracula and Frankenstein both have very unique looks. Frankenstein especially looks like his face is about to fall off. Kind of looks like Leatherface here.
A little bit.
It's kind of both good and bad at the same time. I think they hit accidentally good with this one.
I think so, yeah. He looks bloated and dead.
Yeah. Dracula speaks with a modulated voice for some reason, and he's a little hard to understand. I suspect because of his name, he's some kind of foreigner that didn't speak really clear English, and they dubbed it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we talked about Al Adamson hiring Lon Chaney and J. Carrol Naish strictly for their names, not realizing that neither of them were in physical condition to put in a full day's work. Naish was in a wheelchair, which was okay, they wrote that into the story, and Chaney had throat cancer at the time and could barely speak. He grunts a lot in this.
Yeah, he does.
Naish was pretty old and couldn't remember any of his lines, so he read them off cue cards. That's not unusual, actors do that. But the problem here is that he had one glass eye, so you can see his one good eye going back and forth to read the cards, while the other one doesn't move. It's very obvious, too, once you've heard that.
But maybe that adds to it, because it's a weird effect. To see the one eye twitching back and forth while he talks.
They call him the world's worst director, but you got to be pretty good to make something out of this mess.
And he did, yeah.
It's really not that bad. It's far from good, but I suspect it's the disappointment in seeing these two old stars giving horrible past prime performances.
Yeah.
Nobody was trying.
It was a little bit sad, yeah.
This was the final performance of both the veteran actors. The weakest part of the film is the convoluted plot for a simple idea. Dracula wanted the doctor to make him a formula that would eliminate vampire weaknesses so he could rule the world with an unstoppable army. The pacing is good. It doesn't slow down enough to be boring.
Yeah, I liked it.
It's cheap,
in an
trashy,
entertaining kind of way.
And it's kind of entertaining.
Yeah, it was.
We'll both give it a 3 out of 10, but it was a good, fun 3 out of 10.
Yeah, we liked it more than disliked it. Yeah.
All right, 1931's over on horrorbulletin.com. You can read a review of The Gorilla from 1939. which was a Bela Lugosi film where he was like fourth or fifth billed after the Ritz brothers.
And they were trying to do a ripoff or
Fox wanted
not
a copy of the Marx
of
Brothers.
The Marx Brothers.
And these guys were just
Three
horrible.
Stooges kind of level, but this was Marx
Specifically
Brothers
Marx
time.
Brothers.
This was
yes.
who they were after, Marx Brothers. The problem is the three guys look way too much alike.
They're all brothers. They're all about the same age, and they all look the same. You couldn't tell them apart.
Yeah.
I mean, the Marx Brothers, one's got curly blonde hair, one's got a mustache, one's got the funny hat. You could tell them apart.
Mm-hmm.
These guys
weren't distinct enough.
These guys were clones.
And the humor was, humor
they were
got
horrible.
kind of old.
They were not funny.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen a Marx Brothers film in years. It may not hold up so well either. But God, this was bad. But Bill Lugosi, he suffers through it. He got his paycheck. It was all right.
And he pops up once in a while as the butler and creepy foreigner. And,
Hercules and the Haunted World from 1961 was an early one for Christopher Lee. They made a lot of swords and sandals movies in the 60s with Hercules and all these shiny muscle men. And it was...
he had to pause once in a while to remind you that he's muscular. They
he
would deliberately do a shot of him flexing or lifting or, And he did look good for the part.
Not Christopher Lee. Reg Park was the bodybuilder.
Reg Park was Hercules, yeah. And he had the physique for it.
Now, I have not seen many of these, but the critics mostly say that this is probably the best of those kind of movies. And it was, in fact, more entertaining than I was expecting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it. What about you?
Oh, yeah, just one quest after another. He's after MacGuffins and fighting monsters. And
it's old mythology stories. You'll recognize most of them if you're into mythology.
Mm-hmm. And a bit of trivia, too, that Arnold Schwarzenegger says that he was inspired by this film.
This film and Reg Park.
To become a bodybuilder. Yeah.
Look at him. I can do that.
I can do that.
I
will do that.
We did the math. He was about 14 when this movie came out. So, I wonder what he looked like at 14. A scrawny little kid, probably, getting sand kicked in his face, right?
Maybe, yeah.
All right, well, that's it for this week. Tune in next week where we will have 4 more movies and a short. And don't forget to go over to hourlongpress.com, sign up for the free Book of the Week list. Again, it's 1 email a week that will tell you about the new releases and the free book that week. Not a lot of spam, just 1 more mail. And, of course, Horror Bulletin, where you get all our reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So much good stuff.
A lot of stuff. Getting more stuff all the time. How do we keep up? That has yet to be seen. Well, that's it for this week. I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
We'll see you when?
Next week, I think.
Next week. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. See ya.